let's start by preparing our lab environment. I have already created a small Windows Server 2012 R2 based domains, a single domain controller, and 4 member servers. For this lab, we'll just be installing Automation Machine on the domain controller itself. Normally you would choose a separate file server, but for a lab environment this will do. Let's log on to the domain controller, username, password, and then before we start actually installing Automation Machine, I want to prepare my Active Directory first. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a Automation Machine root OU. This is the OU where Automation Machine will store all the sub-OUs, all the users and groups, and also the service account, but more on that later. So first, service account, let's just call it AM service, and paste. Yeah, next, just give it a password and make sure that the password doesn't expire and that the user cannot change it. And you'll notice that the AM service account is just a normal user account. It's not a domain administrator. Let's create a staging OU. This is where we will put our target machines. So we got 4 member servers and we're moving those to the staging OU. This way we can delegate control on those machines, otherwise it's not possible. So let's delegate control. So we want to give the AM service account enough control to be able to create OUs, groups, and also move computer accounts from one OU to the next. For the lab environment, I will just give it full control. Doesn't really matter at this point. So next step is to create an initial security policy. We want the service account to be a local administrator on all target machines, but we don't want the service account to be a domain administrator. So we're creating a GPO that will allow us to add the service account to the local administrators group. Let's edit, then go to policies, Windows settings, and then security settings, and then the restricted groups, and then you just add a group, call it administrators, which is the local administrators group on the target machines, and then we add the local administrator because we don't want to take away the permissions from the existing administrator. You're also adding domain administrators and the AM service account. Click OK. Okay. So to make sure that this is actually working properly, let's check one of the target machines. Log on to that machine as well. This is just my domain administrator account, password, and then I'm going to start the local users and groups tool to verify the membership of the AM service account. Yeah, there we are. Let's go to groups. Get rid of this thing. Groups, administrators, and oh, it's not there yet. So let's make sure that the policies are up to date. I always like to close my tools to make sure that they really refresh. GP update /force. And there we go. Now let's check again with the local users and groups. Yeah, there it is. So now our service account is a local administrator. Back to the domain controller. So I already downloaded Automation Machine and I already requested a license file. Let's just copy them to the domain controller. There's no database requirements or whatsoever, so installing is quite simple. Normally you would use a dedicated server for this, but as I said, it's just a lab environment, so we'll just install it on the domain controller. Install, there we go. I'm just going to accept the default settings. There we are, finish. Now let's just launch Automation Machine, import license file. There we go. The first window that you see is our environment manager. This is where you actually create your production, tests, and acceptance environments like that. So let's first load our license file. There we are, open, and apply the license. Next, we're going to create our first environment. Let's just call it tutorial. I'm giving it a short description. There we go. And then the prefix is important, needs to be unique for each environment. Let's call this one TUT. And then we need to select the environment type and the template. We'll leave that for later. Let's just enter the AM service account credentials, username, password. This is the account that Automation Machine will use when configuring the target machines. Let's save it. So now it will create the first environment. So we're done. And then the next step, let's just create some shortcuts first. So it will put the shortcuts on the desktop for easier access. So let's launch the main user interface. And this is basically where we can start configuring our environment. So it's loading the environment. There we are. So that's it. We're ready for the next part of our course, and I hope to see you there.